Hey guys, it's Baileywiki and it's December of 2025 and it's release day. That's right. This one's going to be a snowy winter release. In fact, winter is the keyword that you'll use to find a lot of these assets. We've got a ton of assets. It's probably double the size of a normal release. There's just a lot of stuff in the library we felt like we needed in kind of a snowy version. So we brought all those to you, from snowy terrain patches to wagons and barrels and everything else in between. We even have some dead bodies. We even have some dead villagers, so you don't have to just kill soldiers. In addition to all of this, we've got all of the 3D release with a ton of new props and new scenes from Swift and Lettuce. And then we've got, of course, all the Dungeondraft stuff. Again, almost 800 new assets for all of our Dungeondraft users. So in addition to all this, I'm working, I think I mentioned this, on a new way to deliver our content. This is to help out Forge users and everyone who just doesn't want to do full updates of multiple gigabits of Baileywiki content every month. We have a new way that we're going to be giving to some users to pilot. So if you're interested in that, if you're a Forge user or using one of the other hosting services, or you're just interested in a new delivery format that's really kind of on demand, it's kind of what you know, instead of downloading everything all over again every month, you just get the differences, the new stuff, and it's really light and easy. If you're interested in that, leave me a comment or hit me up on Discord and give me your Discord handle, and I'll add you to our list of testers. But with that, let's jump into the release. Okay, so as usual, we're going to find the new assets. You just update all your Baileywiki stuff, and then you come in here to your Mass Edit Presets button, with Mass Edit enabled, of course, and then you just open up your preset browser. It may take a delay if it's the first time opening it in your world, but after that, it's pretty fast. And then you can also, if you have any 2D or 3D asset browsers, you can open those up. If you go to Releases 2025 in December, you can see everything that's new in there as well. Okay, so let's walk through some of the new content. Start with this first inventory scene. First of all, we've got all these barricades. These are super effective. This one operates kind of like a door over on top of another wall if you want to create a door or something like that. And then you've got just the regular kind of snowy barricades, and then you've got these reinforced ones as well. Here's the door version of those. We've also got all of these winter weapons, a lot like the muddy weapons, just all winterized, so you can throw them into the snow for like a battlefield scene. All of your winter platforms that have kind of snow accumulation and frost on them. These are all formally in the library, but without all the snow and frost on them. Then you've got all your winter dead soldiers. So these are going to use some of the soldiers we used last time, but with frost and snow accumulated on them as well. And then now you've got, thanks to someone who suggested this, I think, in my Discord, maybe my YouTube channel, you've got dead villagers as well. So you've got some frozen dead villagers that you can pile onto a scene if you're demented and terrible. We also have the terrain patches for battlefield, so you can just throw down battlefield type imagery. There's more of these than you see here. We just didn't want to put them all in this inventory scene. And then you've got all of the siege weapons and siege components. So you just have things that you can drop into a scene. Here's a little campfire area. Here's maybe like an archer's post behind, you know, some barricades. Then you've got your ballista, and these ballista can go on top of all these ballista platforms. So this is one that's, again, defended by a snow barrier. You can throw a ballista on top of the snow hill if you want to do that. Other kinds of towers. This one's a very tall tower you can put your ballista on top of. Here's a wagon that's got a platform built into it. You can put a ballista on that too. Just wanted you to be able to shoot from anywhere. We've also got all of your battering rams of different varieties. These are all covered in frost and snow. All of your different catapults. You will be getting these next month as well without the snow and frost, just so you know. These are a little bit more orcish design. Then you've got your trebuchets, which you can increase or decrease in size quite a bit, depending on how big you want to make them and menacing you want to make them look. And then you've got the siege tower as well. And if you right-click it, you can alternate between open and closed. So hopefully that's fun. You can create something that spawns enemies out of it, that kind of thing. We also have some prefabs and these are actual prefabs. You can see there's like walls and lights associated with them. So you can find these in the asset browser. If we look up Winter Fort, you can see you've got these defense walls here, and they resize pretty well. Keep in mind in some of them you've got some boxes and things, so these are going to be only certain scale that you can go up or down from. But you can just kind of see they're built as you would expect, with all their walls, letting players not see over them, but see the artwork on top at least. You can also, this is a overhead tile, so your players can walk underneath it. It makes a good effect. And you also have ballista built into these. Now, these ballista are made semi-independent from the background, so you can turn them without turning the rest of the asset. You can press Shift Q and see there's a lot of components to this particular asset. But if you hover over some of these things, you can see where the ballista are. There's some of these tiles here. Next up, we have the winter bridges and paths. These are just different bridges that you can put in place. Remember, you can always use the FX filter adjust. And if you apply that, it will lower, you see, for example, it lowered the saturation. So you can really make these color match sort of anything that you want just using that function. But lots of bridges to play with, even bridges in different art styles in case you guys have some other maps that you'd like to throw a bridge down into. I tried to just give you, I'm experimenting with kind of giving you other art styles, seeing if those are useful to you or not. You also have all of these tileable terrains. So these work well for unlimited terrain tiles if you'd like to deploy those and just kind of zoom and pan around these to create different images, or just simply use this as your background tile for your scene. We also have some of these. These are also tileable. So use these where you think they make sense. There will be some functionality we deploy in the future that will let you use these even more. And then you've got all of these rivers that you can deploy into a scene in case you want to just drop a river in. You've got some to do there. We're also going to be doing something interesting with paths here, maybe as soon as next month. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Next up, we have all the winter decor. So if you've used my library for a while, we've got lots of barrels and clutter and things like that. These are all the same assets, same dimensions, even the same names almost, except that we add winter to them. And so now you can add just snowy clutter in wherever you like, and it works great. Just put in like winter prefabs, for example, or winter clutter prefabs, and you'll get all these different prefabs here to throw down into a scene, dress them up really quickly. More stuff that I won't go into. We do have a collection of snowmen, including some that are all decked out for battle, kind of a Game of Thrones sort of motif here. Some additional snowy bridges. You also have these holiday string lights. So remember the string lights before? Well, now we have holiday string lights. So if you just look for example, string lights, you'll see these holiday Christmas overhead lights. So they're the same thing as the other string lights, but you've actually got chromatic lights attached to them. And then you've got these Christmas trees as well that you can deploy. There are a couple of pieces to them, and they also have lights throughout. So use these sparingly. Don't deploy a ton of them because it's a lot of lights that come built into your scene. We also have a bunch of audio loops. Some really good ones. I updated the wind loop so that is more like an unlimited loop. We've also got ice cracking, different varieties, including like a windy sort of glacier, which is pretty satisfying cracking sounds. We've also got some nighttime winter forests. And these have like wolves howling and just some owls in the distance. Then you've got different village motifs, different levels of subtlety and murmuring and things in the background. We've got some winter music holiday stuff that you can play. These are all looped. So you can just drop them into an area, maybe it's a tavern, your players can walk in and hear some of that playing. And then some winter camps during the day as well. We've also got all of these wagons. A lot of these are as both brushes and prefabs. A lot of these wagons too have different tops, so you can delete them if you hold down, I think it's Shift. You can delete it without deleting the bottom one. You can change them. So if you just right click it, you can change the tops pretty quickly. for some of these. Like these, for example, you can just right click and see if you can change the top. All the other wagons and everything else are now frosted and covered in snow. We also covered in snow and frost all of the Gray Harbor roofs. So you've got all these like beat up roofs now that are covered in snow and frost. These are all available as facades. So you can actually deploy all of these. So if you look up, like, for example, winter facade, you can grab any number of these, add them to a brush, and now you can deploy and resize these. They all come with a light and walls attached. You can't actually enter them, but they're great for decorating a scene really quickly with some snowy rooftops. You've got all of your tents too. These tents can be entered. And kind of a new thing here I'm trying. This tent, the interior is actually a tile. So you can see I just moved that tile around. If I right click it, I can change the interior of the tent. So it's actually, it's interesting. You know, you're walking over the tile and there's a roof, but then there's a tile underneath your feet that really defines what the bottom looks like. These are all just facades. Didn't want to get too carried away creating interiors for everything. These are all facades down here as well, but different kinds of tents. And finally, all the winter terrain patches. So these are actually based, we have a lot of winter terrain patches already, but I did a bunch based on the grassy tor patches. Tor is like a type of hill. So these all look really great. They merge well together. They give you some really interesting terrains that you can play with. These are all playable as maps just on their own, just battle maps just by themselves, but of course they can all move up together. And you can use your adjust filter to do any color corrections that you might feel like you need to do. And then you've got all these like basic snow patches that you can move in and merge with everything as well. We've got floating ice that you can drop into things or drop them onto these frozen ponds. These are great little stickers that you can add to any of these things over on the side, and all of a sudden you've got a terrain with a pond on it. All the snow piles, all the various winter trees. These come as prefabs or as a brush where they're all overhead tiles and they're persistent, so your players can kind of walk under them and be occluded. More trees, more fallen trees. And then you've got some of these large terrain patches where these actually scale quite a bit bigger. So you can make an entire scene just out of these things here. And it's got some built-in trees and streams and other environmentals for you. Just to cover really quick the templates, we've got a couple of diorama templates that if you haven't used these before, you can just double click this dice or double click the template itself. You can also double right click and you can change this to any other terrain that we've got. In this case, I've got the hills selected. If I go to manual select, I can see here's all the old stuff and here's a bunch of new hills in Tor that you can select. It's pretty nice. We've got the 5x version of this as well. You can double click this and it'll randomize all of these things. It's a pretty satisfying effect. And then we've got the templates for all the forts. So these are really large scenes because these forts are really large, but you can move these forts around as much as you like and make them larger or smaller. If I press Shift D, I can rotate it and make it bigger, smaller, that kind of thing. And you can put anything around these that you like. So it's pretty satisfying to just go in and start creating stuff, put anything inside like buildings or campfires or, you name it, put something inside there. Super easy. Put some siege weapons around, which I'll show you some examples here in a bit. Just the other one, this one's got the built-in ballista. And the final one set more on a hill where again, you have just a lot of creative license around the edges. Let's look at some of the ready-made scenes. This one is the Snowman Last Stand. You've got this defensive area here surrounded by all these snowmen that are decked out for battle, some sleds, and a big steep hill. You can just add more diorama tiles around this, make it larger, kind of change it up however you like. Here's the winter streets in terms of a holiday at night. Here in the middle, we've got our Christmas tree all set up with our overhead lights, pretty satisfying. And we've got our weather effects going. And these are all facades, but you can obviously have teleports that take your players to any of these interiors that you want to go ahead and define in their own separate maps. But pretty great. All of the new assault towers, creating some some real depth to the scene, and just shows you how you can use all this stuff together. We've got another winter camp here. This one's got some defensive barriers around it, some tents, standard fare camp that you use a lot of different adventures. And then we've got this deadfall, so you've got a couple of diorama tiles connected to each other. These are all then optimized to become a single background. And you can see we've got some fallen villagers here that presumably fell from the top of this cliff. Here's a large winter camp. This one's at night, but you can turn it on for daytime as well. These are all facades, all of these tents. Players can make their way here into the middle where they've got a fire going. They can also cross this icy pond here and end up in this blacksmith that does have a ambient sound for his blacksmith hammer. A lot of these pieces are interactable. Here's one of our defensive forts, this time outfitted with some things. You've got some footprints going into the front of the fort here. You've got this tall tower in the middle and all the ballista arrayed around it. Here's our fort hill defense with some ballista and platforms set up around it, some trebuchets inside, launching outwards, and just gives you some idea of how you can really decorate these things. You can come in here and start moving some of this stuff around and see how it's done. All of the backgrounds for these scenes are baked in using the optimization tool. If you don't know what that is, if you subscribe to Ripper for a month and you get his media optimizer, you can then use this special macro and it will optimize the scene, look for anything, any tiles with the tag background, and it will attempt to flatten them all together to optimize the scene. One more defense. This one is the Siege, Fort Siege 01, and this has a bunch of damage applied to it. So a lot of the pieces you've seen, we've got some of the siege towers here that are deployed and are already attacking and presumably deploying troops. You've got dead bodies, all of your siege equipment surrounding it, and then different things here internally. You can have the battle already be over or continue to fight it, but just again, more inspiration for you to see how to use all these things together. And then we have the frigid northern waste. This just features like the cracking ice sounds. This is essentially on top of like a glacier or something where your players can presumably like fall in the ice, but have a battle here otherwise. And the last one is just the winter tavern with the Christmas tree. This is just decked out for the holidays. Inside the tavern itself, you've got your Christmas tree. You can turn the lights down. It's pretty satisfying lighting effects here in this scene as well. Okay, so that's it for the 2D release. Let's hand it over to Swift to talk about the 3D release.
Hi guys, Swift here again to talk about this month's 3D release. This month's update is going to be a bit of a short one, though it's entirely due to technical issues on my part. Due to some problems with my graphics card and so on, I won't be able to show you my maps for this month, and I'm also going to have to show you this month's assets while they're still in Blender rather than in Foundry, which is a little bit unusual, but we'll be able to have a look at them either way. All these issues should have been resolved by the time that this update actually gets to you, so no need to worry on that front. In terms of actual content, we should have the same amount of maps as usual, and then a large collection of new assets for you, which we'll have a look at after we've had a look at Lettuce's maps, which are the ones that I can actually look at. So the first map from Lettuce this month is the Inn/Bordello ground floor. And it's a bit of a kind of multifunctional building we've got going on here because we've got several variants going on. In this case, it is, as you can see, just the ground floor of an establishment of some sort where they're selling drinks and food. There's a hatch leading down into the basement and then the stairs leading up into the first floor. As I'll usually say, you can never have enough taverns. The more the merrier. I quite like, in this case, usually what we'll do with tavern maps is we'll do something like have a kitchen separate from the main room, which is a little bit fancy, really, in a lot of situations. So something like this, where we've got an open fire pit in the center of the room, I think is a bit more kind of authentically medieval feeling. So that's quite nice. From here, though, we've got several more scenes, so let's have a look at the first floor of the inn. So up the stairs from that last room, you get to the four very rather nice, stately rooms. They're quite well appointed, and each of them has a varying number of beds in them. We've got some at the back with just one bed, and then these ones at the front here with 3 or 2 respectively. That's another thing that just always seems to come up in adventures, is what's happening upstairs in the inn. A very clean map in the sort of diorama style. Aside from this scene, depending on if you want this building to be an inn or a bordello, we have an alternate room. And this is the bordello version of the first floor. Quite a bit different, as you can see. It's a large number of smaller rooms, each one with just one bed in it. Probably the less said about all that, the better. But it's good to have different layouts for the interiors of buildings for any sort of adventure, really. Obviously, the map had a kind of intention when it was originally designed. However, you're doubtless going to find situations where you need an inn or a building like this that just has many rooms that are each individual. That's a nice little bit of flexibility, I think. We've also got down in the basement, a bit of a grim state down here, lots of very large cobwebs, thick stone walls for keeping everything cool, and then various bits and bobs. Obviously, we've got the chest in the corner, we've got the table covered in secret plans, all the sorts of things that you would expect in the basement of an inn. This one's a bit of a tight squeeze, but I think this would be a nice little miniature encounter for maybe just something like a giant spider or two even, considering all the cobwebs. Either way, though, fits in nicely with the rest of the maps we have here. Speaking of, let's go back outside and have a look at the rooftops. So this is obviously the rooftops outside the inn or bordello, whichever it is you would prefer. We've got the darkness going down to the street because what's down there doesn't necessarily matter. What's going to be happening is your party are going to be trying to navigate across the rooftops, maybe in pursuit of someone, maybe they're being pursued. And you've also got a few things like zip lines down the way, some interiors with stairs leading down to the ground, and then, of course, the merry windows around the place. This is a sort of classic situation for one of those montage tests, where a chase is happening, but it's abstract via various dice rolls instead of actually out on a tactical map. It is very nice, though. We've got one more map from Lettuce this month, and this is the Jousting Field. A little bit of a departure from the other maps from Lettuce this month, but as you can see, it is a jousting field. Pretty simple situation here. We've got guys on horseback on either side of a fence. The podium over here where someone important will be watching, and then the stands hereabout. And we've also got, as a little bit of a cute touch here, we've got a little bit of cleverness going on with the use of the door objects in 3D Canvas and a little bit of tagger. We've got a sort of go reset button. So if the GM clicks on this here, we'll get a little window. And if we click on go, that'll cause them to pass each other there. And then we've also got, if we click it again, we can use the reset to put them back to the start. It's a pretty cute effect, and is actually really simple. We've got these guys here and these guys here are sort of riding on sliding doors, essentially. And then what this button does is it sets this door to open and this door to close when you click it. And then click on go, obviously. And then when you click on reset, it does the opposite. And that's just with a little bit of tagger, a little bit of Monk's Active Tile triggers. It's the kind of thing that I like to encourage people to think about as they're making maps or as they're creating scenes for their players. Is there a way you can add just a little bit of clever interactivity to make a scene really kind of more memorable, even if it's something silly like this? As you can see, it is just the two knights clashing in the field, but something interesting you wouldn't necessarily get anywhere else. Anyway, speaking of, we're going to have a quick look at this month's assets, though I won't be able to show you them in Foundry because of my graphics card issues, but I will be able to show you them in Blender. So this is Blender. This is the tool that I use for getting everything prepared and ready to be sent into 3D Canvas. We don't need to look at anything here, really. All we're looking at is the props themselves. This month we're going with a bit of a sci-fi theme in this sort of exterior tech base sort of situation. So we've got a large amount of buildings here, and to give you an idea of scale, zoom right in on this, this is around about 5 feet across. As you can see, these squares here are about 1 square in 3D Canvas terms. So these buildings do have interiors, and you can go inside them, use something like the clipping shader to remove the roof or that sort of thing. But most likely what I'm expecting people to be using this sort of thing for is sort of background decor. And speaking of decor, we have quite a lot of it. We've got various large buildings, and I'm calling the large buildings as basically any building with an interior. So if you see a doorway, the building does have an interior that you can sort of put tokens inside. And we've got smaller buildings like these over here, which do have interiors but are very small, along with some like modular corridor pieces to connect them up. And then we have a great many props, things like modular pipes, various tanks of various substances, I suppose, walls for the kind of tech base that these are supposed to be a part of, many, many variations on doors, and these are all door frames with separate doors, so you can use the sort of 3D canvas door tool just to turn them into sliding doors as you normally would. In the background over here, we've got yet more techie greebles. These are the kind of things that are mostly, I expect, going to be used by map creators because they are just little bits of detail that you can sort of add into a map here. And bring these up a bit. There we go. And then we've got things like refinery pieces, smokestacks, that sort of thing. A few launch pads for rockets in the background there. And then some more science-themed buildings over here. Like we've got a kind of hydroponics dome with a glass surface that is more transparent than this in Foundry, but in Blender here, it's a little bit more opaque. Various garage pieces and so on. So it's quite a varied sort of collection we have. I kind of wish I could just show you them in 3D Canvas, but as I mentioned, I'm having some technical difficulties. They should be resolved by the time that you actually get this release, so the scene should work as normal, and you'll find them with the usual names like 00 inventory scene, that sort of thing. What I'm also planning to do with these props here is that we'll have a normal scale version of these props, like these ones here, where if we go over here again, we've got the 1 square equals 1 3D canvas square, so, about the right size for a person to go inside. And then about half scale-ish, which is going to be more for terrain for maps with larger characters, like, for example, Lancer or Battletech or that sort of thing, since a lot of these buildings look pretty good from the outside and can really just be used as backdrop pieces for larger maps like that. That's all for now for the 3D side. I'll hand you guys back over. See you later.
Okay, Dungeondraft users, I mentioned this was a big release. It's almost double what a normal release is, so quite a bit of winter stuff here. All of your terrain patches, the ones with water and ice, frozen waterfalls and stuff built into it. You've got all of the barrels and clutter and storage prefabs, all the platforms, all the different wagons and wagon varieties and covers. And there's tons of stuff in here, all the snowmen. And then all of the frozen pond, like stickers, right? The fallen trees, regular trees, all this stuff. It's quite a bit to work with. Then you've got all of like your more city stuff, your roofs, your tents, your larger wagons, your assault towers, and then all of your merchants, your winter signs. And then you get all of the battlefield stuff. So the weapons, the siege towers, the ballista platforms, all of your siege equipment, all your dead soldiers, your dead villagers all covered in snow and ice. You even have some walls. These are pretty satisfying. These walls that you can build around that just have these barriers, both reinforced and otherwise. And then all of these winter barrier pieces, the regular snow and then the reinforced ones. You can really build some cool maps using this stuff. And then you've got all the new paths and the new patterns, and these are also available as terrains. But all these paths are pretty satisfying, change their sizes, whatever. All of these patterns, both kind of large and small for some of these, they've got white grout, so they blend in really well with snow. So you just try using them. And then, of course, if you use the Blur Edge Pattern mod, which I highly recommend, then it really, really merges well with everything that you've got. All of your winter river paths, super easy to lay down rivers, and then all of these winter terrains that are tileable. And again, you can mix these around together now that you can fade the edges. You can really build kind of any terrain that you like. And then, of course, all the winter bridges, which you can recolor using the recoloring stuff. You can change the artwork just by changing it to a pattern and then editing the pattern. If you guys haven't seen my tutorials on that, I recommend you check them out. But yeah, really, really good stuff and easy to work with. You can also see how some of these prefabs were constructed. So you can come in here and kind of deconstruct these things to see how these were made. Because you may want to make your own prefabs and kind of make your own assets out of the core components, right? How do you make these trees out of a lot of little tree pieces? So and then how do you make like terrains that are this complicated, right? Using some of the terrain pieces. So hopefully you guys have fun with that. And that's it for the Dungeon Draft stuff. Let's go ahead and close it up. Okay, so that's it. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks for all your support of the channel. I recommend that you leave a comment if you have any suggestions on what we should build in the future. And also, again, leave a comment or find me on Discord if you want to test the new content delivery system that we've been working on. And with that, I hope you guys have a great holiday season. I hope you take care of yourselves, and I hope you have fun making your maps.